I just saw a video on YouTube by Spaghetti about how you shouldn't get into DCS if you can't devote a decent amount of time to it, and to a lesser extent, a decent amount of money to it. I might be summarizing that video a little bit incorrectly, but that's just the quick and the dirty of it. Um, that video was correct, and I wanted to sort of reinforce that idea that he put out there, but I also want to put some caveats around it based on my own thoughts. DCS hasn't really cost me that much money in terms of how much money I've spent on video games in general, I guess. But it is a financial investment to varying degrees for different people. I own 21 modules. I didn't pay full price for all of those, thanks to the sales and miles and early access, pre-release pricing and things like that. But at list price, that's, according to my calculations, $1,009.79 worth of modules. I bet I spent somewhere around half that, or maybe even less, but I really have no idea. And there are plenty of other modules that I could buy that I don't own. In terms of the hardware that I use to fly flight simulators, there's my computer. I own Track IR. I have some Pro Combat Flight pedals and a Thrustmaster Warthog HOTAS. I bought the pedals and the HOTAS used for $450 over 10 years ago. Track IR at the time was about $150. I would like to upgrade my pedals and my stick, but I may never really get around to it. I've also been gifted an F-16 upfront controller. They call it something else in the F-16, but I can't get on board with all the acronyms. And I was gifted a button box. Both of those were from my friend Warlock, and I think the value of those together is probably anywhere from $700 to $1,200. I'm kind of guessing. You can spend a ton of money on DCS if you want. That's the point I'm trying to make. But you can also play DCS just fine for less than $200 of hardware if you are fine using budget controls and mods. I mean, there are people that play it with an Xbox controller. I don't know how they do it. There's also people that play it with mouse and keyboard. Again, I have no idea how they do it. I could never get away with doing that. But there are people that do it, and there are free mods that you can get. There are free modules with DCS. There are free maps with DCS, and then there are free mods that you can use that are actually really in-depth. So you can actually play DCS without ever giving Eagle Dynamics any money, and you just have to use whatever hardware you can get away with using. DCS is a niche game, so much so that I just made some people really mad by calling it a game and not a sim. It's really both. You can call it a game if you want. It's okay. The problem with DCS isn't, in my opinion, the money, really. As I see it, it's kind of a twofold problem, and both of them revolve around your expectations. DCS requires a little bit of a monster machine to run well. That's both good and bad. It's good because the game looks really good for the most part. The modules look fantastic. The ground, the buildings, trees, things like that usually look okay. Some areas need a lot of improvement, and to be fair, some of the AI plane models are absolutely embarrassing, and Eagle Dynamics needs to really improve those. They've slowly been working on some of those, but honestly, they're just absolutely embarrassing. But for the most part, in general, the game looks really good. The bad side is that to make it look even close, remotely close to what it can look like, you need a really power-hungry hot box sitting next to you in your gaming room or wherever you play the sim. It also means that if you're wanting to try your hand at something like an Eagle Dynamics screenshot contest, or like making higher end videos that are going to get attention, unlike my videos, you're going to need 4K, and you're going to need it to look really good. So you're going to have something a lot better than the machine that I'm using to push DCS. Like, this thing's barely keeping up, and the room goes up in temperature every time I play DCS. Because I'm just really on the verge of overheating my box over here. And I'm saying all this just because the videos and screenshots that you're going to see out there for advertisements, the Eagle Dynamics hype videos are really good, and they're good at hyping their modules, and that's a good thing. And you're going to see all these screenshots that look realistic, but you might be disappointed if you can't afford the high-end machine that's going to take to get a similar graphics experience. I can't get anywhere near that. And my machine's not a slouch, it's just not a modern, it's 5 years old. It can't push DCS even close to what DCS can do. So I'm pretty happy with a lot of the footage and screenshots I get, but I'm never going to win any screenshot contests with them. So set your expectations a little lower than the hype videos if you don't plan on buying, or supporting a really beefy PC. Okay, and then just like Spaghetti's video that I referenced in my intro, your expectation of time should be correct. DCS takes a lot of time, and much of that time is going to be spent failing. Most DCS enthusiasts are going to tell you that you need to start in a trainer, and you got to focus on one aircraft at a time, and go through the training just exactly the way they want it done. That's not really true. Not in my experience, not in the experience of the people I'm closest to that play DCS. Your mileage is going to vary, but like some people learn differently too, and there's just people out there that are going to say you have to take it super seriously and spend hours and hours of your time in it. It's not necessarily true. I've had a ton of fun in DCS over the past 10 years, and I don't consider myself an expert at any module. I spend time on what I want at the time, and I just try to have fun at it. I have had frustrations when I failed over and over and over again, and a lot of that's just me being dumb and me like making it more difficult on myself by doing it the way I do it, which is something that can happen. And some of it's due to the early access system and how things change or just don't work correctly or are bugged, and those are problems with Eagle Dynamics and the development or the third-party developers. But the point is, it's going to take some time and frustration to kind of get into DCS and start winning. But you don't have to follow the formula that everyone says you got to follow. You're just going to have different goals in your gaming. So we can't escape the truth that your expectations need to be tempered for DCS. You can't just pick it up and play it. Now, there is the possibility that you can pick up a module and just start flying around in it. You can start it in the air and fly around with no enemies, and you'll be able to fly around. But you're not going to be able to immediately do the cold start procedure or immediately employ weapons or immediately land it on a carrier. That's just not going to happen. I've had people tell me that they accidentally started the A10C by just flipping switches randomly, and I can promise you that that's never happened. In the history of the world, that has never happened. And people are going to argue with me about it, but I don't believe it for 1 second. You can't, without some foreknowledge or some experience or someone walking you through it, just flip random switches and get these modules started. You have to have something in there to tell you like where to look and what switches do what and what order to do things in. So you're not just going to pick this up. You're not just going to buy a module, fire it up, take off, go employ weapons, and be having fun. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. My takeaway for you are the following 3 points. 1. DCS requires some amount of money greater than 0 with a theoretical upper limit of infinity, and some amount of time greater than Call of Duty but also approaching infinity. Number 2, you don't have to play the game the way the tryhards do. And number 3, before you get into DCS, set your expectations based on what you want to get out of the game and the realization that to be successful, you need to spend some frustrating time in the game. So, going forward, ask me anything you want. I am not an expert player. I'm not an expert at any of these modules, so I don't know all the ins and outs of how to do things. I don't know the proper procedures for most of the stuff in DCS. I'm just here to have fun. But that probably makes me more approachable than some people if you're looking for just general information about DCS and some technical information about DCS. Okay, so I'll help in any way that I can. I think DCS is great. It is not for everyone. That's why it doesn't have as big of a player base as a lot of games out there, and that's why it sometimes gets really bad reviews by people that didn't set their expectations correctly. So, with that being said, Just set your expectations, and if you're not willing to jump in and spend at least some time trying to learn something and being frustrated, then maybe DCS isn't for you. But, on the other hand, Call of Duty is one of the most frustrating games I've ever played in my life. These recent versions of Call of Duty, because of their bugs and the direction that game is going. So, you're going to have frustrations everywhere. It's just that DCS is a completely different kind of frustration than what you're used to if you haven't played a very in-depth, high-fidelity simulation. I'm Max Powers with the 311 Griffin YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Take care and happy flying.